Man attacked by a grizzly bear fights back using grandma's weird trick. When Chase Delwo crossed paths with an angry grizzly bear, he thought he wouldn't make it out alive. While the odds were stacked against him, he managed to give himself a chance at survival thanks to a weird tip he learned from his grandmother. Chase Delwo's vacation. In the fall of 2015, 26-year-old Chase Delwo and his older brother Shane set out to experience the incredible sights and surroundings offered by Montana. They had big plans. Chateau. On a cold Saturday morning, Chase and Shane headed out near Chateau, where the Rocky Mountains meet Montana's plains. The two brothers, however, weren't on a simple hike. They were searching for something. As hunters, the two men were searching for the perfect elk. As they ventured out into the snowy, windy wilderness, though, something much more dangerous was lurking beyond the horizon. Check out those elk. After trekking across some tough terrain, the Delwos finally found what they were looking for. An entire elk herd in the lowlands ahead of them. Quickly, they hatched a cunning plan. The plan. Chase would make his way through an icy creek bed, while Shane headed up to a nearby ridge. With some luck, Chase could drive the elk directly toward his brother. If everything worked, they'd have an easy kill. After that elk. But as Chase was creeping through the creek, he heard one of the male elks bugle, meaning the herd would be on the move. He started to hustle, hoping to reach them before the plan fell apart. Hot on the trail. The hunter put his head down and forged ahead through the wind and snow. He was so close, the elk couldn't get away now. In his haste, however, he stumbled upon something much meaner. Snoozer. Unbeknownst to Chase, there was a grizzly bear curled up in the creek bed, trying to stay out of the elements. Unsurprisingly, it didn't appreciate someone interrupting its rest winds of winter. Due to the howling wind, the sleeping bear didn't hear Chase coming until it was too late. Before either party realized what happened, the hunter was face to face with an angry grizzly. Knocked and loaded. Faced with the bear, Delwo grabbed his bow and nocked an arrow. Before he could pull back the string and fire, however, the bear was on top of him. It was too late. The sheer power of an untamed bear. According to Science Focus, a grizzly bear can bite with a force of almost 1,200 pounds per square inch. Unfortunately, Chase was going to experience that strength firsthand. The bear knocked Chase to the ground and bit down on his head. It then let out a terrifying roar and walked away. The hunter was in pain, but he survived. The ordeal, however, was far from over. Shake, rattle, and roll. As soon as Chase sat up, he saw the bear striding back toward him. This time, it focused on his lower body, biting his leg before tossing the man aside like a rag doll. Brown bear, brown bear. Chase's issues weren't over yet, though, as the bear returned for another pass. With time running out, he desperately racked his brain. Surely he had read a book or heard a story about fending off a grizzly. Thanks, Grandma. Faced with another bear attack, Chase realized he had one option left. His grandmother once told him a strange fact about big predators. He wasn't sure if it was true, but he was about to find out. Gag. When the bear returned, Chase stuck his arm down its throat. I remembered an article that my grandmother gave me a long time ago that said large animals have bad gag reflexes, he told the Great Falls Tribune. The one thing a bear won't do. Against all odds, the plan worked. The bear turned tail and ran away, giving Chase the chance to escape. The hunter wasn't home free, though. He was still injured and alone. Head wrap. I forced myself to calm down and not to panic, Chase recalled. I was lost. I cleared the blood out of my eyes. If I had allowed myself to panic, I would still be in there. What about the elk, guys? Thankfully, Chase made his way back to his brother. Shane checked him for life-threatening injuries and, once he determined there was no immediate danger, took the wounded hunter to the hospital. Grandmama knows best. Chase was in pretty rough shape, but survived to see his wife and hunt again, thanks to that one bit of wisdom from his grandmother and a grizzly bear's weak gag reflex. How to survive a bear attack. Still, if you want to survive a bear attack, the first step is to not get into a bear attack. Chase was unlucky. These three guys from Minnesota missed the day in outdoorsman school where this advice was passed on. In the fall of 2014, Brandon Johnson was 44 years old. You'd think he'd have aged out of crazy stunts by 44. Either he still was chasing that adrenaline rush, or maybe there just weren't enough pool halls or sports events to occupy the gentlemen of Sandstone, Minnesota. Johnson, accompanied by his friends Craig Lindstrom and Trevor Nowak, aged 54 and 24, respectively, had been out bow hunting black bears on September 27. Nowak had found one and shot it, but instead of firing a second arrow, he chose to let it wander and die on its own. Now, it's worth noting the three men, Johnson especially, had been hunting since they were young. With nearly 4 decades of experience, Johnson knew his way around the woods. He certainly wasn't an idiot. However, there are always risks to high-stakes activities like bear hunting, and if one makes a habit of shooting wild animals, eventually you might have a close scrape with a very angry one. In Johnson's case, it would soon come time to pay the piper. It had been 82 degrees Fahrenheit that day. The men were worried that the bear meat, which they would preserve, would spoil in the heat once it died, so they set out 4 hours later into the woods. They felt that the bear would have bled out by then. Though they all carried headlamps, only one of the men had a firearm, and it wasn't Johnson. Lindstrom's Glock .45 would prove to be essential, but he'd be too far away from the bear to use it. Before long, they were able to find the trail of blood that the injured bear had left earlier in the day. In the dim lights, they tracked it through the trees and into a swampy area. The brackish, muddy water was coming up to their knees when the trees cleared out and they found themselves at a river. With no way out but forward, they decided to cross. Nowak, the youngest, went first. He waded in, followed by Johnson, and the water came up to their armpits. When they reached the other side, Lindstrom was about 170 yards behind them, still in the swamp, when he heard them yelling. In the darkness, the two frontrunners thought they might have found the bear and tried to warn Lindstrom that it might be headed his way. He swept his surroundings quickly with his light but saw nothing. Little did they know the animal had changed its course. Sensing trouble, Nowak handed his hunting knife to Johnson, who was about to go ahead of him on the trail. It was an $8 knife Nowak had picked up at a flea market with just a 5-inch blade, but it would be better than nothing. Just a minute later, Johnson heard a twig snap. He took 3 steps before the creature was on him, knocking him flat. The first thing he realized was that a second ago, he'd been looking at the ground. Now he was staring at the stars. He didn't have long to admire the view. The bear's massive teeth swung into view, its muzzle was going for his throat. Johnson swung both hands up to grab it and push it away, but a row of razor-sharp teeth sank into his face. However, in his fall, Johnson hadn't lost grip of Nowak's knife. With his left arm, he tried to keep the bear's jaws from ripping his skin off. With his right hand, he plunged the blade into whatever fur he could find. Then, the bear lumbered off as swiftly as it had come. Though it was only a few minutes, Johnson lay silent and motionless for what seemed like forever, trying not to attract it again. Soon, a shadow broke the tree line. He thought it was Nowak. But he was wrong. It was the bear again, and the thing was running jaws open straight for his crotch. Johnson locked his knees and again used his left arm, now broken in 3 places, to block the attack while he stabbed with his right. Johnson lost count of how many times he stabbed the bear. It climbed off him and came back once more before he was able to get the knife down its throat and deliver a fatal blow that would finally drive it off. By then, he was barely alive. It had only been a few minutes, but the attack was savage. Lindstrom had just crossed a river, gun drawn, when the bear was gone. He and Nowak carried Johnson 3 hours back to their camp, where he got a medevac to the nearest hospital. Friends and family contributed to fundraisers to help cover the steep costs of Johnson's medical bills. He required at least 6 surgeries to put him back together and was lucky and grateful to be alive. "It's amazing that I even had the knife," he said. 9 months after the attack, Johnson hadn't yet been able to get back to work, but was well enough to be on his feet and was planning to return to hunting. "You have to face your demons," he said. The trio showed off their survival skills by, perhaps unwisely, fighting off a wild black bear. Deadly as that species may be, it is actually far from the most dangerous animals in the Americas, as another outdoorsman might tell you.